Well, welcome everybody. This is Kim Evans, and welcome to Inspired Conversations, my podcast 2021. I am so excited today. I have a wonderful guest today, and it is going to be an amazing show. So, you guys be patient, take notes. It's just going to be totally incredible. I have attorney Darryl A. Stallworth, Esquire, a defense attorney, and we're going to be talking about the criminal justice system in the book, the guide that he has written. I'm so excited. Darryl, thank you for saying yes to be on my guest today.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here. Anything I can do to help, I'm happy to do it.
Well, with all the lives that you have helped, this is just a dent of saying thank you of your work, of what you do to the community in helping others in your line of work. So, Attorney Darryl, what I always love to do is to open up my show with a short prayer. Is that okay with you before we get started?
Absolutely. Best way to start anything that you're going to do is with some prayer.
Yes. So, podcast listeners, hey, I just want to, dear God, I just want to thank you so much for your omnipotence. We want to invite you into this podcast. We just want to say thank you. We want to give you glory to your power, your omnipotence, your all being, all knowing. First of all, who you are, we just want to acknowledge the creator, the infinite one, the one that gives us life, the ones that give us power. And God, we want to just thank just our podcast listeners as far as the east, as far as the west, as far as the north and the south. And may the words be transformed and inspired and people be motivated. Our listeners that are listening and also watching. And God, thank you for Attorney Darryl Stallworth and his work. Continue to bless his mission and what he's doing and also his law practice. And God, you know exactly what he has been called to do, and he's doing awesome work. And God, thank you for blessing my voice, because without you, I'm nothing. Thank you, God. Oh my God, Esquire, I am so happy. You just don't know. It's funny because Attorney Darryl Stallworth is very, very, very busy. And I know we have been kind of like trying to get this scheduled. And I just got to say thank you so much for lending me this time and just sharing with the world your contribution and what you do. And I'm so excited to share with the world your guide. So thank you, because we're going to get really into that real fast.
Very welcome. My pleasure.
So without further ado, I have to just share with the world a little bit of background about you. So I'm going to read your bio.
Sure.
Okay. So Darryl has worked as an Alameda County Deputy District Attorney for 15 years between 1992 and 2007. During his time as a prosecutor, he tried over 60 cases, 40 of which were felonies, including 25 murder cases, one death penalty case. He conducted over 100 law and motion hearings, 250 preliminary hearings, and resolved over 10,000 cases. Darryl, 10,000 cases. Wow, your history speaks volume. He has lectured in Brazil, in Malaysia, in India, in Turkey on effective case resolution. Darryl is currently in private practice focusing on criminal defense. He received a BA from University of California, Berkeley in 1987 and his JD from the University of California at Davis. Wow. Hall School of Law in 1992. In 2007, he became a member of the Alabama State Bar. Well, I didn't know that you have dual position here in California and also in Alabama. He is a member of several professional associations, including the Board of Directors of the Big C Society, Charles Houston Bar President 2001, Coordinator College Awareness Advisor Program, Institute for the Study and the Development of Legal Societies, Mentor for Black Pre-Law Society, UC Berkeley, sponsor for Ideal Scholars, UC Berkeley, 100 Black Men of the Bay Area, and the member of Epsilon Beta Buoy. He also has produced a series of television shows titled Staying Out of Jail. We're going to talk about those series. He was recognized by his local bar association in 2014, Distinguished Lawyer of the Year, and he recently published an informational book, A Guide to Understanding the Criminal Justice System's Sex Crimes. The book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. And everyone, I have a link in my Amazon store, so afterwards everybody can go on and purchase his book. Welcome, Attorney Darryl A. Stallworth. Yes. Woo! Take it away. Take it away. Take it away.
To be in the news broadcast business and also in being the masters of ceremonies, because you are amazing in being able to set the stage for whatever's going to happen and whatever speaker's about to speak. So I applaud you for your energy and your enthusiasm.
Thank you. Thank you. And it has been a pleasure to just learn and to see your growth and your work and your accomplishment, Darryl. Totally amazing. So let me just first start here. I gotta start a little bit about, tell us about, I see here, we gotta go back. I think this speaks volume that you lectured in Brazil and Malaysia and India and Turkey. What was that like when you did that in the earlier stage of your work? Tell us a little bit about that.
It was life-changing. We grow up in a country where we only know what we've been taught by our schools and by our colleges and by what other people in the country have shared with us. Once you get a global view of what the world thinks about our country, and how they process their own issues of crime in their criminal justice systems, and you can compare and contrast, it gives you a takeaway in understanding how incredibly fortunate we are that we have a system that we do have. But we also, and I was also able to learn that there's some things that we can do a whole lot better that other countries have done in order to eliminate the volume of crime we have and the way that we treat people when they're going through the criminal justice system. So every trip I took in every country I visited and people I spoke with, hopefully they learned something from me. I know I learned an awful lot from them, their culture, and the way that they manage their criminal justice system.
Wow, that is just so amazing. I think that if you can have any kind of travel in your work of genre and to be able to see the world from a different perspective, that is totally life-changing. It's game-changing. And you had the opportunity to do that at such an early stage in your business. But let's go back even before then. We know you are a previous athlete. You actually played football when you was at UC Berkeley. So my question to you is, Attorney Darryl, when did you know you wanted to become a lawyer? What was that defining moment that you said, okay, this is the path that I want to take? Did you know that when you were completing your undergraduate at UC Berkeley?
Really good question. I was born in 1965, so I was a kid of the 70s, and I grew up watching a lot of professional sports. And I wanted to be Dr. J, and I wanted to be Reggie Jackson, and I wanted to be a sports superstar. I knew I could not sing or dance, so I had no foolish ideas of being an entertainer, but I figured sports would work out for me. So I joined all the teams and worked hard in practice. In doing so, my parents required that if I were to play sports, I would have to do well in school. I worked just as hard in school, but the goal was to become a professional athlete. All the work that I was putting into the sports, turns out I was developing a good set of discipline skills, managing time, and that helped me become a pretty good student. Before I knew it, I was top of my class, valedictorian, class president, all those things were fine, but my ultimate goal was to become a professional athlete. When I was finishing up high school, program called the Constitutional Rights Foundation, in all of their wisdom, selected a number of students from different inner city high schools. And I was selected to be part of a summer program where they got me an internship at a business, Carnation company, and at a law firm. Turns out it was at the district attorney's office in Los Angeles, and I shadowed a prosecutor for 2 weeks and watched what he did, and I was floored. It was amazing. I had the same kind of rush that I had being on the football field, watching people in the courtroom, and I thought to myself, maybe one day that would be something I would do if it turns out that I'm not going to become a national football player or baseball player or basketball player. So that set the seed. I was 18 years old going into my senior year, and the first time in my life I was exposed to something different than what I had been dreaming about. And as I made my way through Cal and had a really good career playing football at Cal, I realized as I was finishing up that I was not going to be an NFL player. I was not fast enough. I was not big enough.
Okay.
I started thinking about that other dream that I was having about becoming a lawyer.
Wow.
In a courtroom. So that's when it started to change. At 18 years old, heading into college and then finishing up college, realizing that this might be something for me.
Interesting. Wow. See, you just never know what's going to be that defining number. We never know how we're going to get to the path of success. God knows, but we don't know. We just have to enjoy the journey. And look what has happened. It's like your courtroom has been your football field. I mean, in a sense, really kind of.
A classic example of being open to all opportunities. Had I said that I wouldn't have any time for that internship, or if I thought that it wasn't going to be worth my time, I had to commute from Compton into downtown Los Angeles and work my way on out and get to a place I hadn't visited. I hadn't spent any time in a courtroom. That was a big jump and leap of faith, but it was God's way of planting the seed and letting me know that he had something else planned for me. And although I was figuring out what I was going to do and what team I was going to play for, he already had in his mind a path for me that I eventually understood and accepted.
Well, we see now you're on the defense team. So that's the team that God wanted you to actually.
Yeah, he took me through the first journey of being a prosecutor. And I thought that's what it was supposed to be. And even before that, I thought I was going to be a different type of lawyer. I thought I would go back to Los Angeles after law school and work in a big law firm and make a lot of money. And I was a big fan of LA Law, and I watched Jonathan on the farm. So I thought I would be that new kid with the money and the Porsche. And it's funny how you grow up believing that your dream is something that will allow you to acquire wealth. Mm-hmm. What you're really dreaming about is the money and the house and the prestige. Mm-hmm. But if you're being honest with yourself when you look back on it, you should be dreaming about what your purpose is.
Absolutely.
Serve.
Absolutely.
And once you do that, then all those other things become a part of that. But if you go for the money and the house and the clothes and the car, mm-hmm. then you're not really being intentional about what your purpose is.
Wow.
I learned that as I look back upon it. But when you're a kid, you grow up, and those are the first things that attract your attention, the things that are sparkly, the material things that a lot of our kids still find or think is what they want to have. But how you acquire those things is where the real journey starts.
Well, you have definitely been a great role model to that. And if anyone wants to look at the definition of success, and as an African-American male, and what your contribution has been, it definitely is Darryl A. Stallworth. Yes, a model of success.
It's a work in progress. Still a whole bunch to be done.
Let me ask you, take me back real quickly, 1992 to 2007. When you first started, you were with the Alameda County Deputy District Attorney, right?
Yes.
And so from there, then you went on to your own private practice with another group of attorneys. So what was the defining moment between when you left with the Deputy District Attorney office and then you went to another office actually that you started after that? What was that shift?
Coming out of law school, I wanted to do trial work. I was told, and it is true, that if you want to get into a courtroom, you need to work in a prosecutor's office or a public defender.
Okay.
Prosecutor represents the people, charge cases, you prove cases, you have discretion, you're responsible for a lot of what happens. Defense attorneys represent people who are charged with crime. I wasn't as excited about doing that. I thought if I wanted to do trial work, I wanted to be a prosecutor because I would have a choice in what cases got charged, what kind of work I would do. I was also, a little concerned because I recognized and understood that in the criminal justice system, most of the people that were being prosecuted looked like me.
Yes.
And I wondered if I could do that job. A kid from Compton working in an office where most of what I would be doing is putting people of color into jail. But when I met with people and I spoke with people about what I would actually be able to do, I was impressed with Alameda County. They were really clear, letting me know that if I chose to work for them, they would value my insight, they would value my thoughts, they will allow me to make decisions about who got charged, and what cases we could resolve, how we might go about finding some fair and reasonable resolution. And that was really important to me. I walked into that office in 1992 knowing that I would be as passionate about prosecuting people as I would be about dismissing cases, not charging cases. Literally representing the people, not just the people that are the victims, but also the people that are being charged, because you want to make sure that you're doing everything that's fair and reasonable.
So you went from the prosecutor side, and then you left there and went to Taylor, Goins, and Stallworth. And so then you became on the defense side from there?
Yeah, after 15 years, I thought it would be 5 years and I would be gone, but I started to really enjoy the experience of being a prosecutor, trying cases, developing relationships with police officers, probation officers, victims of crimes, witnesses of crimes. It became just an incredible opportunity to use whatever talents that I had acquired and whatever God was allowing me to do. I kept telling myself that after 5 years, I would find something else to do. And I was there 10 years. I looked up at 15 years and I had tried an awful lot of cases. I finished up a death penalty case, which was mentally and spiritually exhausting. It required me to sort of sit back and ask myself if I could do that again, and for how long would I do it, and what was my role and my purpose staying there. And I decided that it was time for me to use what I had acquired and the knowledge that I had acquired to shift into private practice. I thought I would do some civil work and use my trial skills as a way of becoming more familiar with trial work and doing well as a trial attorney. It was another one of those shifts where I thought, okay, I can use this work that I've done to make some more money and to become this great civil trial attorney, because that's where money was. So lo and behold, I do that. I joined up with two really good brothers, Ernie Goins and Bill Taylor. We become Taylor, Goins, and Stallworth, and we're practicing law. I'm doing some civil, but I'm getting these phone calls from people. Hey, my brother just got picked up on a case. I know you're a former prosecutor, but can you help him out? Hey, my uncle or my son just got picked up on a DUI, or my uncle got picked up on a murder case. I thought, whoa, I wasn't really prepared for the volume of people who would need my help. Having done nothing but prosecuting work for 15 years, I had to sort of push pause and see what was supposed to happen. And in that position and in that mindset, I realized that God was telling me everything that I had learned and everything I had done prepared me for what I was about to do. I was about to walk into this journey, helping people get through a system that I had become very, very familiar with. And doing that, I realized that the civil stuff wasn't going to be part of my purpose, that I was going to dissolve the partnership, start my own firm. I have a license to practice in Alabama. I took the bar exam out there. By the grace of God, I passed it. That's why I've got the 2 bar licenses. I considered working with my brother, who's a lawyer in Alabama. He's a former police officer from Los Angeles who later in his life decided to be a lawyer. And I wanted to be able to do civil rights work in Alabama. Wanted to be able to have the cycle go from my ancestors being slaves and being part of Jim Crow to me and my brother being able to become civil rights lawyers and help people who were in desperate need of help. So that's still part of the dream that may happen one day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, your journey is still unfolding. So there's no, you know, there's a reason why you're dual licensed. And I'm sure that part of your journey is going to pick itself up in due season and due time, as we have seen your journey unfold. I think this is amazing, Darryl. This is beautiful because now you're at the law office of Darryl A. Stallworth. This is your company. This is your baby. This is your brain. This is your law practice. So from starting from Alameda County and then sharing with Taylor, Goins, and Stallworth, and now you're at the law office of Darryl Stallworth. Wow, how does that make you feel, you know, and what you're doing in your accomplishment right now?
It's surreal.
Yes.
Because the kid that was studying at Berkeley and Davis was a pretty conservative kid. I didn't venture to do much. I'm a pretty scheduled ritual type of guy. So I wouldn't have thought that I would have been having so many different career changes.
Yeah.
But I am very blessed to be able to have kept an open mind and been open to what God has planned for me to do. And being a part of this journey, I've learned a while ago to let go and let him do what he's going to do.
Absolutely.
And that's where I find myself now. I would have never thought I would be managing my own business. Enjoy the idea of just getting my paycheck as a prosecutor and not worrying about payroll and insurance and staff. But when I stepped out, I had to learn, and as you know, because you're an entrepreneur, you understand the way the world works. You understand capitalism in a completely different way, and you understand how important it is to develop healthy relationships.
Yes.
That's the key. That sustains me. I know it sustains you because of the way we treat people.
Absolutely.
Professionalism, the politeness, and just treating people with good energy. And that attracts folks who need your services. And
Absolutely.
I'm really blessed to have my phone ring on a regular basis. Someone needs help, and they'll tell me, my brother-in-law or so-and-so told you about me. And they don't necessarily talk about what actually happened with the case. What I know that they're doing is they know that I return phone calls, I return text messages, I spend time with my clients, I go to the jails, I do everything I can to develop relationships with everybody. It's a journey for not only the client, but for the family. We live vicariously through our family, and if they're going through a tough time, we're going through a tough time. And I've been lucky for the past 14 years.
I cannot believe, Darryl, you've been doing this for over 14 years, plus 15 years as a lawyer.
Correct. So almost 30 years.
So now your whole total time in your career has been 30 years?
29.
Wow. You look like you just started last year, man. How you so beautifully young.
It's
and this is not a career. No. We know that attorneys get burnt out. You're looking amazing. My goodness. Wow. So you actually have to find a joy in what you do. Share. What is that just keeps you so motivated and really staying just planted and motivated in what you do and the people that you serve? Because you do not look stressed at all, totally, whatsoever. Like your work is so easy, and we know we got to give glory to God for that. But what is that, dear? What is that keeps your passion just on fire? And you're in criminal law at that.
It's the gift that God gave me of being quiet amidst the storm, having a calm and peaceful character. That's something that my father had, my mother, my grandfather, and I look at the history of my family and all the things that they've gone through, the work that I do is challenging and it's awfully sad and tragic.
Yes.
But I've been able to develop a nice, constant place where I have peace. And that's because I've got good support from my family, from my friends, and from my community. And I wake up every morning and I say, thank you, God, for allowing me to have an opportunity to help someone. As simple as that is, it's a purpose. Mm-hmm. When you have a purpose, when you have intention,
yes,
then you can go through your day, whatever challenges you may have, whatever you may face, you can always be grounded in knowing that you're doing something that's based on service.
Yes.
It also requires, and we talked about this before, being healthy in your mind, your body, and your spirit. Yes. So I am a early person. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I do my yoga. I run the lake. I get into the gym. I come back. I meditate. I do my work. I'm purposeful about it. I eat fairly healthy most of the time, but I've got my cheat days and I've got my special foods that I like that I'll treat myself with. Overall, it's a regular routine doing things that are good and healthy and getting sleep. Mm-hmm. I used to think that sleep was overrated, that I'll have time to sleep sometime later. But I've realized that if you're really going to be effective in what you do, you want to make sure that you've got rest. I try to get to sleep most nights by 9 o'clock.
Wow.
About 7 hours of sleep if I get up at 4. But those are the small things, but they're really important.
I think that is so amazing, Darryl, that you mentioned you have a whole holistic approach to your practice. Yeah, not only are you serving, and you actually have a deep-rooted passion in that, but you're taking care of yourself, mind, body, soul, and spirit. And that actually is so important in the duration in your career, the longevity and the sustainability, that you exercise every day and that you're on the path of eating well and you get great sleep. That is wonderful. A lot of lawyers, they find that to be a little challenging to do with the work level that they do. So how is it that, I just want to ask you real quickly, I'm glad that we segue into that. How is it that you make sure that you have some level of self-care managed along with this whole career path that you have to stay dedicated and in alignment with that? How do you make that a priority? You consistently make that a priority, it appears.
I started a long time ago. I've always been a morning person. Even in college, I didn't get a lot of work done after football practice because I was too tired. So I would wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and read my notes and go over the lecture and do my assignments and type my papers back when we had typewriters and we didn't have these computers with spell check and aging myself. But folks out there probably remember when you actually had to be on a typewriter. And if you made a mistake, you have to go back and do the whiteout or get that onion paper that you can erase. Those were the old days, but that's what we used to do.
Yes.
And I would do that early in the morning so that I could prepare myself for the day and not be pressed. I think the biggest stress factor in any work you do is feeling like you don't have enough time. If you're going through your day and you're rushing to get to a building or to a courtroom or you're rushing to get something done, for me, I knew the best way to eliminate that stress was getting it done early that morning. Mm-hmm. But when people are rushing into a building or a courtroom at 9 o'clock because they just finished something or stressed, I've already gotten it done.
Wow.
I've had my coffee at 8:30 and I'm slowly walking into a courtroom with 15 minutes to spare because I've got my mojo together.
Yes.
And it started 40 years ago. 56 years old, so as a teenager, I started it even in high school. I'm fortunate enough to be able to have this discipline that I started a while ago, so it's just natural. I don't even have to set a clock. Most mornings, I'm just going to wake up because that's what I've become accustomed to. So the advice would be for folks out there, particularly younger folks, is develop your time schedule and stick to it. so that you know when you can get work done, you know what's your best time to
I
get
love it. Darryl, I can't wait for you to come out with that book. That is a book that you need to come out with to help lawyers and everyone else in their careers. And mentioning of books, let's shift gears and talk about your criminal justice system sex crimes book. Actually, you wrote a guide, and I'll just share a little bit. The forward is I've written this book to help anyone going through a complicated legal system and to serve as an educational tool in prevention. And so, although the criminal justice system is complex, possible, the book is written using common terms. And so, my question is, what made you to decided? What made you choose this area that you wanted to write your first guide in? Criminal justice system sex crimes.
Actually, the
Very.
origin of the book started the first year I was in law school. I
Wow.
started reading cases and I was amazed at how similar a lot of these scenarios sounded and looked. And I thought that, but for the grace of God, there go I, or people that I know, when we're talking about the criminal justice system. When I accepted the job as a prosecutor and I was assigned a caseload, I would look at these cases, drunk in public, battery, domestic issues, drugs, alcohol, weapons, violence, bar fights. And I thought, if the persons that are now going through this system and suffering these tragedies and the poor victims that are part of the system as well, if there was some information that I could share up front and be proactive, then hopefully we could eliminate some of these tragedies that we're reacting to. So I started then doing the workshops in Berkeley for the athletes and students. I would also do workshops at churches, and it would just be 20 minutes of me talking to them about what a crime is, how a case is charged, things you should do, things you shouldn't do, and then a Q&A on whatever subject. Later, I said, well, let me see if I can reach more people, and I put together the TV program. I was actually asked if I would put together a TV program on one of the local cable stations that no longer exists, but I had a TV program, Staying Out of Jail. It was a 20-minute segment that aired on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I was busy with that. And then later, I've always wanted to put something in a book so that it could be distributed and more people can have the information. And it was the reaction to the thousands of phone calls from people over the years that normally start off with, the police just called me, what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. Or someone's knocking on my door, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. My son just got arrested, he's at jail, what happens next? Mm-hmm. We have a court appearance next week on a murder charge. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what that means. What are we looking at? My 17-year-old son just got arrested for a statutory rape. What's statutory rape? What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Then the social media stuff that's taking place over the last number of years has also been really important. There's very little information about what that does and what that can do to you if you're being investigated for a crime. So the book talks about things to do and not to do with your social media if you're being investigated. So it's a series of bullet points that I'm constantly sharing with people once they've already unfortunately been contacted by someone from the law enforcement agency. I wrote this book so that I could get it out there. People can hopefully read it and avoid these situations that
Absolutely
place them on that journey. And then for those who are being contacted or being affected by it, then a guide that they can go to. If they can't get to me right away, then at least they can have something that can walk them through what they have to go through. So that's the beginning of a series of books and workshops and lectures on just trying to get the information out there.
So let me just tiptoe back when you talked about social media. Can you give us a little bit more information about that? Is there a particular protocol that you have to watch on how you present yourself on social media so that you're not attacked, or what would you?
Yeah, I mean, what you want to ask yourself before you put anything out there in the universe is, if I'm being questioned about my character,
Yes.
how would this statement
Okay.
reflect on me? How would it be interpreted, or how could it be interpreted by other people? Particularly if I'm being accused of being untruthful, if I'm being accused of being racist, if I'm being accused of having engaged in criminal conduct. Does this statement say something about me that's going to make that more difficult? Does this photo say something about me that's going to reflect negatively on what I'm trying to go through? If you just pause and think about that for a second, then you will make better decisions about whether you're going to post something, whether you're going to put a photo out there, whether you're going to make a comment about what someone else said. I am not a social media person, never made a comment or said anything. And this is part of what I've learned doing this work, but also what I've learned about how statements can be misinterpreted.
That is so important that you mentioned that. I'm so glad you talked about that, because oftentimes people are not realizing what are you projecting in terms of your character via social media. And that is so important. And you have to be careful. Pictures that you post, types of comments that you're making, people who you're hanging around, all that comes into play if something was to happen and a case is built against you. It's really important. It's a reflection. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Oh my goodness, that's key. That's vital. I mean, I can pull up and mention a couple of celebrities or artists that have gone through things. And when you look at their social media, it's like, what are you saying here? What are you projecting here? So it's really, really important. Your social media is everything, especially young people. We'll touch on that for one quick second. And young people and what they're posting and how they're doing. And all of a sudden, if you get into a situation and then now you're victim, and then you're looked at the police or whatnot, and they're looking at your social media, and you're tried and you're in a case. It's just really an important reflection, and I think oftentimes, young people don't realize that. Any light, I mean, I know we can go on and on and on, but maybe some key points that you would share with single mothers that you can lend to that have sons in high school, that they can be careful when they're out there so that they're not a victim. Any key points that you would like to
It's
share?
different layers throughout for young men, particularly men of color, because of the suspicion that is there.
Right.
We are seeing our young men in particular differently than everybody else.
Yes.
I've been involved with a lot of workshops.
Yes.
With titles like Know Your Rights, What to Do When You're Pulled Over.
Yes.
The most important thing that I can tell a mother when they're talking to their son is to make sure their son understands that whatever an officer does or says that violates their right, it does no one any good to be suing that officer if you're not around to reap the remedy.
Yes.
We don't want to be suing officers for having taken you away. Be still, listen to what they have to say. Do not do anything as best you can. Do not say anything as best you can.
Yes.
That will create an environment that allows someone to see you as being hostile. However you may feel about the stop, the detention, about the engagement, your purpose and your goal is to make sure that you are able to litigate that situation. Don't want to litigate it for you. We want you to be there in court with us.
Exactly.
So that if we are addressing what an officer did, it does us no good if you're not there. So there's a list of things, and we can do a whole workshop on just what happens when you put over what you say, how to develop a conversation that's less threatening. And I know there's a whole bunch of pushback. Why we have to do this? How we have to do this because we have to do it. So I don't care if it means that you've got to humble yourself and you have to be still. I just want you to come home.
We want you to come home safe, and we want you to come home. At the end of the day, we want you to come home alive. At the end of the day,
have these conversations with them when you're talking about that. When we're talking about crime, and if you read my book, you got to be careful about relationships. You don't know people and what they're capable of and how they are going to feel about your reaction or your physical intimacy. That's one of the biggest challenges in this book. The areas of sexual assault are so gray that if you don't read this book, if you don't take some time to talk to your sons, the way that I've talked to the young men across the board, then you don't want to have to be having this conversation while we're in court. You don't want to have to be having this while we're trying to figure out what the amount of bail is. To have it now and put a young man on notice is not a entertaining conversation. It's not a comfortable conversation, but it's the most important conversation you can have.
The most.
Yeah.
And on that, why is sex crimes the most misunderstood portion of the law? The most misunderstood.
If I did a survey and I asked the people that are listening and watching right now, can a 17-year-old kid be arrested for having sex consensually with a 16-year-old girl? And most people would say, no, that's happening all the time. But the law says that's statutory rape. Any young lady that's under the age of 18 that has sex with a man is a victim. Now, most of those cases aren't reported, but if you've got a son who's a junior in high school and they're 17 years old and he's got a girlfriend who's a freshman in high school and they're having sex, statutorily that is unlawful. If you are in a place or an environment where you believe that it's okay for you to touch a young lady in a private part of her body, even if it's on the outside of clothing, that's sexual battery. If there isn't an understanding and a obvious, hopefully verbal consent, you could be subjecting your son, or he could be subjecting himself to an investigation. And I know it sounds bizarre, but it happens. That's why I wrote this book.
Yes.
There's a lot of families who are traumatized by that. I want to talk to Joe.
Absolutely.
Because something happened at school today and we've got a problem with it. And if you're lucky and you're fortunate, it's a misunderstanding and you get some type of counseling or some type of therapy. But with today's climate and the way social media works, the mere accusation could damage you for years. To label a kid, particularly a young man, colored as someone that's done something that's unlawful sexually could have ramifications that are beyond what we are able to manage. So that's why this particular subject in this area, the old traditional thoughts about the force and the violence that's used when you are engaged in unlawful sexual conduct. It doesn't even fall under those categories all that much. What we're seeing is someone that's either mentally impaired or so intoxicated that they're unable to give consent verbally. However, they're physically incapacitated to the extent that they're not resisting. And the young man now has the responsibility of being able to know that this isn't an opportunity to have intimate relationship. This is the sign in the red glass that says nothing's going to happen here.
Interesting.
So
Wow.
chances of that young lady waking up the next day and feeling like she's been violated is very high. And the investigation that takes place thereafter then becomes what we call it confirmatory bias. Once a person accuses someone of something, the police department just wants to confirm what she says. They're not challenging whether or not it actually happened, how it happened. So now you've got to fight sort of that inherent bias. And I'm mindful that, unfortunately, there are a lot of sad situations where our young women are being taken advantage of.
And I was going to ask, even
legitimate victims of sexual assault. And that's another book that we need to work on and talk about. But for the situations where it is not so clear, this book is going to help make it very clear that the thing that you can do to avoid the ambiguity, to avoid the skepticism and the investigation is to stop and not find yourself engaged in that particular relationship. There are the days of the one night stands are gone. The days of meeting somebody and hanging out are gone. Those things cannot exist anymore. Your life and your freedom is too important.
That's right.
Here's the biblical part about it. Unless you are with someone that you know, and you're in a healthy relationship and a friendship, and there's a commitment on both your parts. Absolutely. Sounds like, I'm an old person, but it's the truth. Those are only safe relationships that I believe you can have when we're talking about this particular area of law. So that's the message in the end that I'm trying to share with as many people, mothers of young men and young men themselves.
Well, I must
person.
Every woman should get a copy of this book. It's called A Guide to Understanding the Criminal Justice System, Sex Crimes, by Attorney at Law Darryl Stallworth. And you could get it on Amazon. I think it's an exceptional book that every mom, every parent, and particularly a single parent should have. Now, I do have another question in terms of retainers. Is that something that people are still doing? I think that would be a great, exceptional idea to have, especially if you have a young man, to always have your attorney or an attorney on dial. You just never know, not just to help because of a situation that may occur, but maybe you might have a question or a family member that might get into an event or circumstance or situation.
Yeah, it's important.
It's important to be able to have an attorney on retainer.
I call it having me on speed dial. You don't necessarily have to physically invest a payment. That would be nice. If you came to me and said, hey, here's $5,000, put it into your trust account, hoping that I never need it, but if something comes up, I know I can call you and we don't have to worry about the initial financial transaction. You're my guy. This is what we're going to need. I have a YouTube station, and the title of it is That One Lawyer. I want to be that lawyer that when you're having that conversation and someone is in trouble, you will say, oh, remember that one lawyer? That's Mr. Stallworth. Here's his number. Give him a call. Because the earlier that I can become a part of the case and start defending the client, the better. If you're waiting until after you get arrested and you've already had your first court date or you've already been in the system for a while, I can still help, but it's better if I do it in the beginning.
Absolutely.
The analogy that I've given is we have medical insurance, hoping that we never get sick. We have dental insurance, hoping that our teeth are always going to be fine. We have car insurance, hoping that we don't ever get into an accident.
Absolutely.
You need to have freedom insurance. You need to be able to have somebody on speed dial that will help prevent you from being incarcerated.
Absolutely.
If you're incarcerated, you're not going to get medical help, dental help, and you're not going to need car insurance.
Absolutely. Totally not.
Level of insurance you need is someone that's going to help keep you out of jail.
Yes.
Don't necessarily have to come over and put a cash deposit in, but you want to have my name or someone like me in your phone. As soon as you hear about something that your family member is going through, or
yes,
someone that you know down the street, a neighbor, a colleague, somebody that's going through something at your job,
yes,
you want to be able to get that person to me as soon as you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, this has been amazing. Okay, your YouTube channel. Can you give us your YouTube channel again? So if people wanted to also follow you on your YouTube channel, did you say That One Lawyer?
That One Lawyer.
I love it. I love it. And Darryl, tell me something, staying out of jail TV. Is that something that you're doing? Are you still recording those episodes?
I have them on a DVD. It's, I believe, 7 episodes.
Okay.
If anybody's interested in watching the episode versus reading the book, those are available as well.
Okay.
You go to my website, www.your-defense.com. Okay. Then there's a contact number that you can call, or an email address that you can email me if you want a copy of any of the television programs that I've done. Oh, wow. There are a series of them. There's sex crimes, the paper crimes, the crimes of violence, domestic crimes. There's also a segment on rehabilitation. A young man that I interviewed that got a lot of help from Men of Valor, a program that Bishop Jackson put together with the church that helped him get through a drug problem, which was caused a lot of his criminal behavior. There's a cycle that exists that we all know about when our folks are having addictions. And addictions result, unfortunately, in a lot of crimes.
Excellent.
We can stop the addiction and we can get them help.
Excellent.
They won't find themselves in the criminal justice.
Love it. So let me ask you, as we come to a close, Darryl, what's your next? What's your next book? What next subject will you be writing about?
The next one is going to be drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
Because of the driving under the influence, the still addiction to methamphetamine, cocaine,
wow,
heroin, and the effect that it has on our young people and old people alike. It's a formula that starts with the alcohol or the drugs, and then the bravado and the ego. And if there's a weapon available, it creates the explosive situation.
Wow.
This book is going to help encourage people to remove the addictions, to work on the mindset, and also eliminate the tools of which are being used in order to commit these horrible crimes. We're trying to get it right from the start, eliminate the foundation of the problem, and then working on eliminating the risks that are involved. That's how we can change the culture of what we have and how we can hopefully reform what's going on in the criminal justice system.
And when shall we see this book come out? When will it be complete?
My goal, my timeline is sometime this summer, hopefully by August.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to hold you to that you will complete that project by the end of summer.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you lastly, Attorney Darryl, what are the 3 people that have been the most influential to you in your career path?
It's a good question. People, I guess he's not a person, but God, my spiritual advisor.
Okay.
What he's been able to do, conversations I've had with him. I lost my father a long time ago when I was 18 years old, but his spirit, stays with me. Then my family support. I have a close-knit family of people who are always encouraging me and helping me to continue to be purposeful and to do those things which are of service. And that's where the key is. I've been able to do a lot of reading during the pandemic. There's some
Mhm.
good books that talk about an awakening.
Love it.
New Earth. It's a book that I read recently that's really powerful by Eckhart Tolle. It's on Oprah Winfrey's reading list. It was a game changer. His work about getting out of your ego and being able to understand who you are and not being moved by what other people might think is the beginning of being able to find that peace and tranquility in your life. That way, when you're doing something, there's no stress or pressure about what someone thinks about it. As long as you're doing who you are and you're being purposeful, that's been really helpful in this journey as well.
And I always like to ask a fun question. If you could star in a movie and you can play a character, what character would you play as you are starring in your own movie?
Starring in my own movie, I would play a defense attorney who's out there trying to save people's lives and right the wrongs that have taken place and challenging all of the archaic constitutional guidelines about sentencing. We want to change this crazy system we have with creating this mass incarceration and changing those things. So kind of like a Denzel Washington, some of the things he's done. He did a movie a long time ago called, I think it was Philadelphia with Tom Cruise.
Absolutely. Yes.
I would have him play me, or I would play a movie with a trailblazing lawyer trying to do some justice.
I love it. Tyler Perry, are you listening to this, Tyler Perry? I think that we have maybe a movie script that's coming down. You never know. You never know.
I've got all the real life stories. He wouldn't even have to look far. Right?
He sure wouldn't.
Archives, there's some
it's not too far-fetched. It's not too far-fetched. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send him this podcast when we're done.
Sure.
My last question to you, what advice would you give an aspiring young college student, young Black African-American male that wanted to go into law and to become a defense attorney? What advice would you give him now?
Come over to the courthouses and spend a day in the life. Okay. Look at what the system looks like. Get a bird's eye view of what I call the belly of the beast. Okay. What you're learning in college is fine. The cases that you're going to study in law school are helpful, but there's nothing like practical experience. Anybody that's worked with me as an intern or extern, had an interest in law, I just have them come hang out with me for a day, because in the course of the day, you're going to get phone calls from people who've just been arrested. You're going to go to court for people who are in the process of going to trial. You're going to see and hear about the tragedies. You have cases from DUIs to multiple murders. Mm-hmm. This is where we see the problems of our society are manifested in the criminal justice system.
Wow.
You can learn about the layers and why people fall through the cracks and what happens with someone's background. What is post-traumatic stress disorder? Where does it come from? How are people affected by it? Why are they making decisions? What's the disconnect? So it's an amazing field. Just come on over and let me walk you through some of it. And if you do that, I think you're going to be inspired to want to be a part of something that you can help change and make better.
Do you have a mentorship program right now?
I do. It's sort of informal. You call me up and you want to do something, I'll find something for you to do.
Okay. All right.
It doesn't have to be the traditional come into the office and have projects. You can do a lot of projects online. I can give you an assignment and I can tell you to show up to court and tell me what you think about this court proceeding. So anybody, I've had middle schoolers come over who have changed their mind about what they wanted to be after spending one day in court with me. It's a little different now because of COVID-19.
Exactly.
We're starting to get back to the new normal. And when that happens, we'll be able to have some shadow programs.
Wow. All right, young mothers. All right, young people listening to what? Here's a charge. You have an opportunity. If this is something that you want to do, Attorney Darryl have said that you could give him a call. He'll be more than willing to spend some time with you. Where there's a will, there's a way. It has been a pleasure. If people want to get in contact with you, can you leave your information? I'm also going to leave it in the credits as well. What would be your website or phone number, how you would like to be someone to get in contact with you if they have a
The
question?
website is the best way. It's your-defense.com. I don't think people even say www anymore, but it's or you can just Google my name. If you put Darryl Stallworth into the Google, it will get you to the website and a whole bunch of other stuff. You can find me.
It has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and an honor. And we wanted to give you honor in Black History Month too, but I know you were so busy, so we're giving that honor to you today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So this is Attorney Darryl Stallworth. Oh my God, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
You're
And
very
thank
welcome.
you so much, podcast listeners. This is Kim Evans, and thank you so much for joining Inspired Conversations with Kim Evans. Bye for now.